Well, it is a gathering of people who have held or do hold considerable weight and power in the story of the United Kingdom. And they're gathering for the first part of the Accession Council. They're referred to generally as the Lords of the Council, who are added to by representatives of the Commonwealth and by archbishops of Canterbury and former archbishops and other appointments, including from the City of London by old tradition going back to the days of Queen Elizabeth I. And they're gathered here to witness the first part of this council. Normally, privy councils, the word privy is where the secret of it is, where private. Former Archbishop of Canterbury there and of York. And they, all of them, have held an appointment and therefore can witness the procedure that we will see. At the allotted point, the current acting Lord President of the Council, who is the Right Honourable Penny Mordaunt, I say acting, her appointment was approved by the late Queen, and she will lead the Council now.
Please make sure.
And other members of the royal family who are gathered, along with Privy Councillors who are selected, the Archbishop of Canterbury and others, will sign the proclamation, ending up with the Earl Marshal and the Lord President herself. At this point there will be other business, and then the Privy Councillors who are going to go and meet the King will leave this picture gallery and head through to the throne room.
And Alistair, we're just seeing for ourselves some of the makeup of the Privy Council, just how high octane it is in terms of the politicians, all those former Prime Ministers for a start.
Former Prime Ministers, of course, and also the leaders of the opposition and the heads of the other significant parties, and also representatives from different parts of the United Kingdom, but all those who have been granted the privilege of becoming sworn as members of the Most Honourable, the Privy Council. And Privy Council rules dictate that there should be cross-party capability of people to talk about things in complete secrecy, and thereby some of the function of the most difficult moments of the national story can be done by agreement being reached outside the public forum. So that's one of the rules. But you can see there people who we regularly hear from because they currently have held, more recently, cabinet appointments or hold them right now. But just because the Queen, the late Queen, had approved the current cabinet, they haven't all been received by the monarch, and so that needs to be done shortly. Let's listen.
It's 10 o'clock, you're watching Sky News live from St James's Palace in central London, where the historic meeting of the Accession Council is just about to begin.
The business for part one of the Council. My Lords, it is my sad duty to inform you that Her Most Gracious Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, has passed away on Thursday, the 8th of September, 2022, at Balmoral Castle. I propose that, when certain necessary business has been transacted, a deputation consisting of Her Majesty, His Royal Highness, the Archbishop of Canterbury, the Lord Chancellor, the Archbishop of York, the Prime Minister, the Clerk of the Council, and myself, shall wait on the King and inform him the Council is assembled. I now call on the Clerk of the Council to read aloud the text of the proclamation.
Whereas it has pleased Almighty God to call to His mercy our late Sovereign Lady, Queen Elizabeth II, of blessed and glorious memory, by whose decease the crown of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland is solely and rightfully come to the Prince Charles Philip Arthur George. We, therefore, the Lords spiritual and temporal of this realm, and members of the House of Commons, together with other members of Her late Majesty's Privy Council, and representatives of the realms and territories, aldermen and citizens of London and others, do now hereby, with one voice and consent of tongue and heart, publish and proclaim that the Prince Charles Philip Arthur George is now, by the death of our late sovereign of happy memory, become our only lawful and rightful liege lord, Charles III, by the grace of God of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of his other realms and territories, King, head of the Commonwealth, defender of the faith, to whom we do acknowledge all faith and obedience with humble affection, beseeching God, by whom kings and queens do reign, to bless His Majesty with long and happy years to reign over us. God save the King.
God save the King.
I now invite those on the platform to sign the proclamation.
First to sign, the Prince of Wales. Her Majesty the Queen Consort. Signing, Camilla R. Regina, Queen. The Lord President of the Council. The First Lord of the Treasury and Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. One of the great officers of state, holding an appointment that goes back into the history of time, the Archbishop of Canterbury. It will be his responsibility to crown the new king. His signature, Justin Cantuar, cross. Cantuar, the Latin for Canterbury. The Archbishop of York. His signature, Stephen Ebor, cross, Archbishop of York. Lord Privy Seal. Later on, the gathering of all those present will be added with their signatures to this document, all of them invited to sign as they've witnessed the announcement of the death of Queen Elizabeth II. And they are formally acknowledging that this be read out to the kingdom to confirm the new king. Finally, the Earl Marshal of England, the Duke of Norfolk, who is responsible for organising not only the state funeral of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, but will be organising the coronation of His Majesty the King.
Drafts of 8 orders of council. 1. Ordering the proclamation to be printed and published in specialist supplements in the London, Edinburgh and Belfast Gazettes. 2. Directing the Lord Chancellor to affix the Great Seal to the proclamation proclaiming His Majesty King Charles III. 3. Directing the kings, heralds and pursuivants of arms to attend at the Court of St. James to proclaim His Majesty King Charles III. 4. Directing the Lord Mayor, the Court of Aldermen and Commons of London to attend at the Royal Exchange to proclaim His Majesty King Charles III. 5. Directing His Majesty's Secretary of State for Defence to give directions for the firing of guns at Hyde Park as soon as His Majesty is proclaimed. 6. Directing the Constable of His Majesty's Tower of London to give directions for the firing of guns at the Tower of London as soon as His Majesty is proclaimed. 7. Directing His Majesty's Secretary of State for Scotland to cause the proclamation for proclaiming His Majesty King Charles III to be published in Scotland. 8. Directing the Clerk of the Council to issue circular letters for causing His Majesty King Charles III to be proclaimed are hereby approved, and that concludes the business for this part of the Council. I now invite the deputation party to accompany me to wait on the King in the Council chamber.
With echoes of history, another page has been written. The Prince of Wales and the Queen Consort leading through the short distance to the throne room, just through that door. And we will join them in a moment, and there will be other members of the Privy Council who will go with them to attend upon the new King.
Ladies and gentlemen,
and for those still here, further signatures will be given under the instructions that we're hearing being given.
Thank you. The City Civic Party, I know, also have other business, so we'll want to depart at this point. I also invite any non-privy councillors to depart from the doors at the rear via the matted hall, signing the proclamation in the lower corridor as you leave. And lastly, may I invite the witnesses to the oath for upholding the security of the Church of Scotland, if you would like to move down into the throne room.
Throne room, the Earl Marshal,
as I departed, people
with attendant representatives.
Privy councillors only,
And one might recall quite what it must have been like for an 18-year-old Queen Victoria to walk in to the throne room of St James's on ascending the throne, and for each monarch since her each of them dealing with a recognition of a personal tragedy and sadness in a family, and taking on the burden of kingship. The Earl Marshal now, the last to head through to the throne room with the representatives who will be coming with him, former prime ministers, who will wait on the arrival of the king. Representing a broad range of parties, religion, service to the United Kingdom through Parliament in different roles. These are, after all, a representative number of the very large body of the Privy Council today, and for them they have been selected because each year there is a ballot for representatives from those parts of the Privy Council who have long since been serving in high-profile roles, but always they have cabinet members. We can see many of them amongst the group there, former leaders of different political parties, former Lord Bishop of London, Richard Charteris. The throne room is a little bit smaller than the picture gallery, and both of these rooms are very close to where the proclamation will be made of what has been read out to the Accession Council just now. And once they are all in the throne room, the king, who is likely waiting in the area between Clarence House and St James's Palace, there is a waiting room that the royal family use when preparing to come into the throne room. Many events have taken place in that throne room. Obviously the accession councils of all recent monarchs, but also at state visits. State visitors come and receive the ambassadors to the court of St James in front of the canopy, which is embroidered with the king's coat of arms. This is the first time women have attended the Accession Council. It was always an entirely male event, an evolution that perhaps also marks quite how much social change has taken place in the United Kingdom in the reign of the last Queen. The division between those Privy Councillors, the last of whom we're now seeing filtering into the throne room, and the High Commissioners who've now left and who dine in the lower galleries. You can see straight through the doors there to the throne, waiting for the new king. The thing about Privy Councils is that they always exercise their business standing up, which was deemed to be a sensible way of making sure that the councils themselves didn't last too long. And they are by nature functionary. And business can therefore be dealt with quite quickly. It's a very richly decorated part of the palace with red damask walls, all in hangings, surrounded by all these amazing paintings, monarchs of the past. And the king will probably come in through the door on the left there, and out the window at the gardens of Clarence House. And you can see the plant badges of the United Kingdom on different parts of the canopy hanging down above the throne here. It will take a little bit of time before the Earl Marshal is content that everyone is ready. The Earl Marshal is holding the baton of his office and gives him the exercise of his authority, and when he's ready, the second stage of this Privy Council will take place. Very moving moment for the new king, because he will refer back to the death of his mother and how he feels. And although we heard him address the nation yesterday, this is a very intimate gathering of the most significant people in the United Kingdom. And he addresses them not only with sorrow about the death of his mother and reflecting the grief that he knows the United Kingdom holds, and also other nations, but pointing out his determination to serve the Constitution as its principal guardian on the guidance and advice of this Council, principally in those members of the Council who form the Cabinet at any one time. King George VI, when he attended his succession council after the abdication of his elder brother, King Edward VIII, was extremely nervous at this point because he had an impediment in his speech. We know that the Prince of Wales does not, but he generally has a very emotional approach to moments of family sadness, and he clearly was dealing with that yesterday when he addressed the nation for the first time as king. The throne, you will notice, has the cipher of the late Queen. I was mentioning earlier that the College of Arms, working closely with the royal household and the King's advisors, will be designing a new cipher for the new reign. It will have CR, Charles Rex, with the Roman numeral 3, perhaps, or whatever the new king and the College of Arms decides. And it will be ensigned by a royal crown. And it will appear just as the late Queen's cipher appeared just about everywhere, on post boxes and in England particularly, and other parts of the United Kingdom. In Scotland too, the cipher can perhaps come back. The E2R did not apply to Scotland because Elizabeth I had never reigned over Scotland, but that is different for King Charles as we wait for the arrival of His Majesty through that left-hand door, which is where the waiting room for the King is. And there's only a few doorways from Clarence House. There are routes through from different parts of the royal palaces here, which is why we haven't seen any royal arrivals publicly. The murmur of conversation between people who have been foes in Parliament, between different archbishops who have been serving at Canterbury and York over the years, all of them perhaps with their memories of their talks and meetings with the late Queen, and all recognising that this is a significant moment for the evolution of a monarchy that has woven a line through the tapestry of time for this country, back to monarchs like old King Cole, Kenneth MacAppin of Scots, and the Princes of Wales, and the old High Kings of Ireland. And in the new king are so many of those lines of descent. And in the first act that we will see the king invited to take part in, which is an oath, we will feel that history too, as he is asked to undertake to protect the independence of the Church of Scotland and its privileges. Once again, the king will come in and he will have the chance then to make his statement to those assembled Privy Councillors here, and reflect upon the Queen's reign and the loss that we all feel at her passing. So when he enters the throne room, all present will bow. The King will make his declaration, after which the Lord President will ask leave to publish the declaration of His Majesty. And then he will be asked to make the oath relating to the Church of Scotland. He will read out the oath, holding a testament in his uplifted hand, and he will sign 2 parchments as copies of that oath. And one will be kept down in the United Kingdom archive, and the other sent to Scotland, to the Court of Session, to be kept in the books of the Cérémonie, which are the records of the Court of Session in Scotland, and the other preserved in the Privy Council register. A copy of the Scottish oath will, of course, be sent later to the moderator of the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland. The moderator, interestingly, was preaching at Crathy Church the last weekend of the Queen's life and stayed at Balmoral Castle and spoke recently of how lively and spirited the late Queen was at that time, and when he took leave of Her Majesty on Monday, she seemed in good heart. As the council are brought to order, when the King comes in, a bow will be made and he will make his statement.
Business for Part 2 of the Council. Your Majesty, to make your declaration.
My lords, ladies and gentlemen, it is my most sorrowful duty to announce to you the death of my beloved mother, the Queen. I know how deeply you, the entire nation, and I think I may say the whole world, sympathise with me in the irreparable loss we've all suffered. It is the greatest consolation to me to know of the sympathy expressed by so many to my sister and brothers, and that such overwhelming affection and support should be extended to our whole family in our loss. To all of us as a family, as to this kingdom and the wider family of nations of which it is a part, my mother gave an example of lifelong love and of selfless service. My mother's reign was unequalled in its duration, its dedication and its devotion. Even as we grieve, we give thanks for this most faithful life. I am deeply aware of this great inheritance and of the duties and heavy responsibilities of sovereignty which have now passed to me. In taking up these responsibilities, I shall strive to follow the inspiring example I have been set in upholding constitutional government and to seek the peace, harmony and prosperity of the peoples of these islands and of the Commonwealth realms and territories throughout the world. In this purpose, I know that I shall be upheld by the affection and loyalty of the peoples whose sovereign I have been called upon to be, and that in the discharge of these duties, I will be guided by the counsel of their elected parliaments. In all this, I am profoundly encouraged by the constant support of my beloved wife. I take this opportunity to confirm my willingness and intention to continue the tradition of surrendering the hereditary revenues, including the Crown Estate, to my government for the benefit of all, in return for the sovereign grant, which supports my official duties as head of state and head of nation. And in carrying out the heavy task that has been laid upon me, and to which I now dedicate what remains to me of my life, I pray for the guidance and help of Almighty God.
I have, with humble duty, to crave your Majesty's permission for the publication of your gracious speech.
Approved.
Concerning the security of the Church of Scotland.
I understand that the law requires that I should, at my accession to the Crown, take and subscribe the oath relating to the security of the Church of Scotland. I am ready to do so at this first opportunity. I, Charles III, by the grace of God, of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of my other realms and territories, King, Defender of the Faith, do faithfully promise and swear that I shall inviolably maintain and preserve the settlement of the true Protestant religion as established by the laws made in Scotland in prosecution of the claim of right, and particularly by an act intituled An Act for Securing the Protestant Religion and Presbyterian Church Government, and by the acts passed in the Parliament of both kingdoms for union of the two kingdoms, together with the government, worship, discipline, rights and privileges of the Church of Scotland. So help me God.
I now invite your Majesty to subscribe both copies of the instrument, confirming the oath has been taken.
Noting that the King is signing Charles Rex, Charles R.
I now invite the witnesses to His Majesty's oath to sign both copies of the instrument.
And for the first time, the Prince of Wales signing William P. for Princeps, which is the Latin for prince. You will note that for an order in council to be approved by the monarch, just the simple word approved makes it enacted. And the remaining business will be thus attended. In the background, well, the signatures, particularly the Secretary of State for Scotland, the Right Honourable Alistair Jack. You can hear in the background the music of the Coldstream Guards as the King's Guard is forming up in Friary Court for the proclamation to be read out by Garter King of Arms later on. The First Minister of Scotland, Sturgeon, signing the two documents. First time, First Minister of Scotland has taken part in this significant part of the Accession Council. In the background, the private secretaries of the former Queen, the present King. Former Queen's private secretary will continue to serve the new King, and also of the Prince of Wales.
Draft of an order in Council authorising Your Majesty's declaration to be made public.
Approved.
Draft of an order in Council for recording the oath relating to the security of the Church of Scotland, to be transmitted to the Court of Session, to be recorded in the books of Sediment, and afterwards lodged in the State Papers of Scotland and in the Council Register.
Approved.
Draft order in Council determining the form of proclamation for proclaiming Your Majesty in the realms and in the British Overseas Territories.
Approved.
Draft of an order in Council authorising the Lord Chancellor to make use of the Great Seal for sealing all things whatsoever that pass the Great Seal until another Great Seal be prepared and authorised.
Approved.
Draft of an order in Council authorising the Lord Privy Seal, if need be, to make use of the existing Privy Seal until another Privy Seal is prepared and authorised.
Approved.
Drafts of 3 orders in Council authorising Your Majesty's principal Secretaries of State, the Lord Chancellor of the Exchequer and the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, to use the existing seals until other seals be prepared and authorised.
Approved.
Draft of an order in Council authorising Your Majesty's Secretary of State for Northern Ireland to make use of the existing Great Seal of Northern Ireland until another seal be prepared and authorised.
Approved.
Draft of an order in Council authorising Your Majesty's First Minister of Scotland to make use of the Great Seal of Scotland until another Great Seal of Scotland be prepared and authorised.
Approved.
Draft of an order in Council authorising Your Majesty's First Minister of Wales to make use of the existing Welsh Seal until another Welsh Seal be prepared and authorised.
Approved.
Draft of an order in Council authorising the public seals authorising the respective public seals lately in use elsewhere than in the United Kingdom to be made use of until new seals be prepared and their use duly authorised.
Approved.
Draft of an order in Council confirming Your Majesty's wishes in relation to the Sovereign Grant Act 2011 to continue the tradition of surrendering the hereditary revenues, including the Crown Estate, to your government for the benefit of all, in return for the sovereign grant which supports your official duties as head of state and head of nation.
Approved.
Drafts of 2 proclamations. 1. Appointing the day of Her late Majesty's state funeral as a bank holiday in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. 2. Appointing the day of Her late Majesty's state funeral as a bank holiday in Scotland. And of 2 orders in Council directing the Lord Chancellor to affix the Great Seal to the proclamations.
Approved.
I now invite Your Majesty to sign both proclamations. And that, Your Majesty, concludes today's business for the Council.
With bows from all the Privy Council, the King, the Prince of Wales and the Queen Consort leave, followed by their household.
May I
And
now
whilst
invite
all
the
the business is
deputation
not done,
party and the witnesses to the oath to exit via the picture gallery and the matted hall.
Members of the Council will now take positions, such as they are able, along with the King, the Queen Consort and the Prince of Wales, to witness the proclamation that will take place.
I now ask the Privy
11:00.
Councillors present to exit via the picture gallery and the matted hall and invite you to sign the proclamation, which is laid out in the lower corridor. Thank you all for attending today.
As they depart, it is interesting to notice how much attention is given to great seals and seals. All seals are the means of authority being stamped and confirmation given to any instrument or enactment, and so consequently, as they are all currently bearing reference to the late Queen, permission needs to be given for them to carry on until the new ones are made. And when the new ones are made, they will be presented to the monarch, who will be invited to deface with a hammer the old Great Seal. And this is done deliberately in order to make sure that no one could use seals because of their power in enacting law in the wrong way. But we have witnessed a remarkable moment, the confirmation by the High Council, as it were, the Privy Council of the United Kingdom, of the death of Elizabeth II and of the accession of the new King, Charles III. And shortly, with all these signatures being placed upon confirmation of the proclamation that the Accession Council has just given approval to, it will be passed to Garter King of Arms, David White, who will then, with the heralds, pursuivants and kings of arms, along with the sergeant at arms, which we will see, and the state trumpeters, take their place on the balcony overlooking Friary Court at exactly 11 o'clock. And a reminder that today, although we are in the mourning process for Elizabeth II, is defined to be a day of celebration of the new King, and that's why at the moment flags are being raised across the kingdom to full mast, and they will remain at full mast until 1 hour after the last proclamation, which will be at 1 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow. It's very normal, isn't it, that sometimes pens don't work, and this is such a significant document, and everyone will be wanting to make sure that their signature is properly made. This is a document that will go into the archive of the nation, and for those who are signing, who come from all different walks of political persuasion and interest, this is a non-political moment, a punctuation point in the national story. And just as the state does occasionally step in and order the process of the political argument and push, this is one of those moments where we stop and think about how the Constitution rests through ancient tradition upon a non-political head of state who has inherited from his mother the responsibility. And now, in this long gallery, where often they have laid out books of remembrance and will later on for those who will wish to sign books of condolence to the Queen.
Yes. Yes. It's just a matter of time, and I don't know if
And Alistair, as we watch, as you say, so many politicians from all sides of the House of Commons, from all political persuasions, signing the documents there, just give us your sense of the statements that the King made there. Of course, we remember the statement made by Her Majesty the Queen back in 1952, and that awareness, once again, as we heard from King Charles last night in his address to the nation, that awareness, that pledge, that vow about his duties and responsibilities.
It may seem to a modern world quite trite in an odd way, because some of the language we're hearing and some of the way in which these activities are carried out looks very formal, very dignified, very old-fashioned. And yet, what the King has undertaken to do is profound, and that is to maintain the constitutional traditions by which, as a free nation over the years, we have developed through Parliament, which is sovereign. And the strange nature of the United Kingdom is that although Charles III is the sovereign, the United Kingdom Parliament is itself what is sovereign, and the King is responsible for maintaining, on the advice of his principal ministers who form the cabinet, the Constitution as it evolves. And we can recollect recently controversial times when it has been the case that the advice given to the late Queen on certain constitutional matters were then subsequently laid before the Supreme Court and cast out. And so we are reminded with quite recent history that it is a delicate balance sometimes for monarchs, and any biography of any recent king or queen will tell you that this is no easy set of judgments, and there is great pressure upon monarchs sometimes to act correctly and formally in times when they can be put by a political desire into an uncomfortable place. So I think what we're witnessing is profound, because the king has undertaken to uphold the Constitution, and we know what a tough job that can be. And he did say that in the period of grief, as he undertakes this new role, he holds for the support of the people of the United Kingdom and further afield in order to carry out this task. It's a pretty lonely place to be sometimes.
Our royal correspondent Rhiannon Mills is here with me, and Rhiannon, your take on the King's declaration?
I think following his historic address to the nation last night, there was really a continuation of the themes, and I think those messages that he's been so keen to convey to the country and to the rest of the world, fully appreciating that everyone is now looking to him to lead the tributes to his late mother. He talked about how the family appreciate the overwhelming support that they are feeling from so many. He described how his mother gave an example of lifelong love and selfless service that was unequalled in her devotion, and said that even in our grief we should really look to her example. Also, again, I think a reminder of what he described as really the weight of responsibilities that now rest on his shoulders, and that has formally been confirmed today in terms of the proclamation that's now being signed by political and religious figures. John sent to me there. He talked about the great inheritance that he now takes on, the heavy responsibilities of sovereignty. And we can also see there that gun salutes are being prepared. Yesterday, of course, we had gun salutes there at the Tower of London, also at Hyde Park. And right across the United Kingdom, 96 gun salutes yesterday to mark every year of the Queen's life. And throughout her reign, those gun salutes have marked moments of celebration. Yesterday, there was an air of solemnity. Today, once again, the guns will fire. And this time in celebration of the start of a new reign. There is fanfare today. And yet I think for the new king, he was ever so keen to make sure that that does not detract from the enormity of the loss that everyone's feeling.
And Rhiannon, those gun salutes will coincide with the initial public reading of the proclamation. I wonder if we can have a look at the shot behind us here, just outside St James's Palace, where members of the public have been gathering outside, and many of them have been around Buckingham Palace for the last few hours. They've been let in that short distance to St James's Palace, and behind us there is the balcony above Friary Court, and there we can get an aerial view, a better view than we actually have, because the crowds are between us and that, as we await the reading of the proclamation, the first public reading of it. Yes, of course it has been on television, but this dates way back before the days of television or any forms of electronic communication, and the reading of the proclamation will be taking place at 11 o'clock precisely, and that will be read out by the Garter King of Arms. And as we're saying there, then Rhiannon, it cascades throughout the country, initially in central London and then beyond.
That's right, and we will see over the coming days that proclamation will be marked in Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales. I think it's worth reflecting on the fact that for the first time today, this ceremony has been witnessed on television, but as we watch the crowds outside of St James's Palace now, looking across Friary Court towards that balcony, it is an echo of what would have happened 70 years ago. And today, it's worth reflecting on the fact that we are witnessing ritual and spectacle that has not been seen for so long.
And so many people wanted to be part of it. I mean, it's only certain members of the public who've been let in. There are many thousands more I can see down there being held back who've been around Buckingham Palace, but also some of the members of the Accession Council have come out to be part of the crowd themselves. I can see just over the top of some of the other cameras around here, Chris Grayling, of course, former Transport and Justice Secretary, amongst other things. I think that's Nigel Evans, Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, and many others there mingling amongst the crowds. It really is the great and the good.
And for us, I think, to watch through those corridors, so many political figures.
Salmond as well.
And I think it was a reminder, wasn't it, of the Queen's remarkable reign and the decades that it's covered. Seeing all those familiar faces, some more recent than others when it comes to their political careers, but also to see 6 of her prime ministers there in the front row watching as the new king made that proclamation, a reminder of the longevity of her reign and now the fact that her son is taking on that responsibility.
Also a reminder, I know we don't have cameras on this, but also a reminder of the suspension of political hostilities. Theresa May and Ian Blackford, the leader of the SNP in Westminster, having a bit of a chat there. Can almost say a tender chat. You can see Gordon Brown, former Prime Minister. Oh, there's former leader of the Conservatives, former Foreign Secretary William Hague as well. And that's just a few of these politicians who, as you say, Rhiannon, have gathered out here to mingle with the crowds, to take in, and it's an overused phrase, but this really is this moment in history.
Yes, some decided to leave earlier, but I think a number of them have decided to want to stop and pause. And I think, like so many across the country, maybe spend a bit of time reflecting on their own memories of meeting the Queen. One thing that certainly will unite many of them. But what was also fascinating today was the Privy Council, members that we see waiting out here now, is this body that we're often reminded of how important it is to the monarch, the sovereign. They're this body of advisors. But never have we seen that gathering filmed before. We've never been able to witness it. And yet we now saw the new king actually conducting the business of state, penny mordant, saying certain things, and then the new king saying approved. And that gives us a new insight into monarchy, brings it into the 21st century, and at a time when people will, I think, feel, some people bemused by the fact that this has all happened so quickly, the death of a much-loved monarch, and already we have fanfare about a new sovereign. Opening the doors, letting people in, hopefully will explain the process a bit better.
And Rhiannon, just on practical matters, we got some new information, didn't we, during the course of that process, about the funeral, that it will be a bank holiday.
Yes, so we now know that the King has approved an order declaring that we will all have a bank holiday on the day of the funeral. When is that day? We don't know at the moment, but...
Do we know when we will be told, when that will be decided?
So we're anticipating that we're going to have the first briefing in terms of what we can expect over the coming days and potentially the date of that funeral later this afternoon. So hopefully by this evening we will know when that bank holiday is going to be and a few more details about what is to come over the next days or so.
Well, let's rejoin Alistair Bruce, our royal commentator. And Alistair, we're, 4 or 5 minutes away from this moment in history for the first time since 1952, when we are going to hear the reading of the proclamation of a new monarch.
As you speak, the state trumpeters coming out onto the balcony here above Friary Court. And the intention of this event is to speak to a nation, a commonwealth, in mourning, and to raise the heads of that nation to celebrate that there is a new monarch. From the window onto this balcony will come the pursuivants, heralds, and kings of arms of the College of Arms. Also the sergeants at arms, the heralds wearing the tabards which show the coat of arms of the king, kings of arms wearing white plumes on their cocked hats, and also with them will come the Earl Marshal, the Duke of Norfolk. They will spread across the balcony. And here comes the Garter King of Arms, David White, who with the Earl Marshal beside him holds the proclamation.
Have we had the trumpets?
Waiting for the moment of 11 o'clock when the guns will start to fire to mark the announcement that the King has given instruction to be read out, that the Queen has died and approved by the Privy Council. He has now been identified and confirmed as the rightful new King. From the principal palace of the monarchy here at St. James's, the principal proclamation will be made at the moment 11 o'clock strikes, and they'll be watched by the new King, by the Queen Consort, the Prince of Wales, and waiting down below, the King's Guard, Number 7 Company, 2nd Battalion Coldstream Guards, who will later present arms to celebrate the new King, and then we'll give 3 cheers to His Majesty. The principal proclamation of King Charles III.
Whereas it has pleased Almighty God to call to His mercy our late Sovereign Lady, Queen Elizabeth II, of blessed and glorious memory, by whose decease the crown of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland is solely and rightfully come to the Prince Charles Philip Arthur George. We, therefore, the Lords Spiritual and Temporal of this realm, and members of the House of Commons, together with other members of Her late Majesty's Privy Council, and representatives of the realms and territories, aldermen and citizens of London and others, do now hereby, with one voice and consent of tongue and heart, publish and proclaim that the Prince Charles Philip Arthur George is now, by the death of our late sovereign of happy memory, become our only lawful and rightful liege lord, Charles III. By the grace of God, of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of his other realms and territories, King, head of the Commonwealth, defender of the faith, to whom we do acknowledge all faith and obedience with humble affection, beseeching God, by whom kings and queens do reign, to bless his majesty with long and happy years to reign over us. Given at St. James's Palace this 10th day of September in the year of our Lord, 2022.
The captain of the King's Guard will now order the troops to present arms, and the colour will be lowered. And then God save the King.
God save the King!
To a great cheer, the captain of the guard brings the troops out of the present, and they will now ground their arms, place their rifles on the ground and prepare to give 3 cheers. They kneel down, place their rifles and return. So with joy, wherever you are, if you wish, join in with 3 cheers for the new King.
3 cheers for His Majesty the King! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray!
Captain of the King's Guard will now start replacing of headdress, the recovery of the arms, and Garter King of Arms, the Kings of Arms, the Heralds Pursuivants of the College of Arms will then, along with the Heralds Extraordinary, leave from the balcony. And the principal proclamation of the new reign is done.